What's up guys, Matt here coming at you with another quick video. I'm going to talk a little bit about shock setup, basically what I'm running now, because I have an old shock video that's very outdated. Back a couple years ago, probably, there were no shock options really for these things. It was stock shocks, hot racing aluminum, which did nothing. They just looked better. And then you kind of got the double barrels that came into play, and those were pretty cool. And that was really it. So there's lots of options now. I'm going to show you what I'm running now, and take it for what you want. It's my setup that I kind of like, so it is what it is. Every truck's different, you know. Everybody wants to have their truck do what they want it to do, so there is no one perfect shock for every truck. There's no perfect setup for every person. I can't sit here and tell you to do it this way and it's going to work for you, but I can show you what I'm doing for most of mine. So right now I'm running these Injora internal sprung shocks on the front of basically all of mine now, the way I'm setting them up. So I was just going to show with the Bronco here. This thing is filthy from Beat the Creek, but check out this cool little rack too. Anyways, so you can see I have those on the front. I'm still running the stock shocks on the rear of this thing because I kind of like how they support the body well. You can see they've got those stiffer springs back here, and even with the weight of that body, that's not squatting. So these shocks I've mentioned several times. I'm putting a spring in them to pull the front end down, so you can see that front end pulls down, and then when you're somewhere where you need the flex, the weight of the axle drops them anyways. So you're kind of holding your low CG, but got some flex. Running the same setup on that, and you can see it flexes pretty well. So kind of going to show these to explain it, because I say force droop, and then everybody asks if I could show how I do it. So if you don't know, it's pretty, super simple. I do this on most of my 110s. Also, with those, you have a lot more room for adjustability tuning, you know, because it's a bigger shock. You can do a lot more with it. Plus they hold oil, these don't hold oil. So out of the package, you can see how that shock springs back, just like your normal shock, right? So all I do is take this top cap off, and there's a little black spring in there. Then we come down here and we take the bottom eye off. That way this shaft will just slide out. And so when you take the shaft out, instead of putting the shock on the top side of this piston, it's basically just a plastic ring on here, but normally your spring is on this side. You're gonna take this out, put the spring on the bottom side, then put it in like this. Then put your eye back on. See how it pulls back up in there now? So you can, on some, depending on how you want to run them, you can put one of these other springs on the top side here, and then you have a little bit of like dampening when you're driving, you know. You're not just bouncing over every bump. You got a little bit of shock to give. That's what I do on my 110s, because you have more room in here. To me, on these shocks are so short anyways. When I do that on these, it really limits your shock travel, because you got a spring up in here that you're bottoming out as well. So charger's done. So I normally have been running them like this one or two of mine, I think I do have a spring up here. But I really like the black springs. I wish they came with more of those. These springs in here are almost too much. Because if you put one of these in, you end up one way or the other. It's either pushing it down because this spring is stiffer than the one that's in here now, or the other way around. Let's put it in there and I'll show you. See, so now you're kind of, because that top spring is stiffer than the bottom. Either way you do it, you kind of end up with one or the other, honestly. So I just run no spring on the top, just like that. So that's what I'm running on this. You can see I have them mounted upside down. People ask if that's really an advantage. Probably not on these. 10 scale, I do it a lot. I mean, it's just added weight down low. So who knows if it actually works. But I'm running that on this truck also. You can see same deal, and then I have some double barrels in the rear to really give it flex and travel in the rear. Works pretty well so far anyways. I think I'm gonna build this set and put on the Yoda. You can see there how far that hard body gets away from the axle when you're going uphill. And when that unloads like that, that's when you tip. So if I can pull that down around in there, keep my nice longer trail oil filled shocks in the rear there, I'm gonna do that. I need to rebuild those, they're pretty weak right now. But so this set is gonna be for that. So I'll put some running in here, a couple of these, running these shocks. For me, on the Bronco, this is a great setup. I also, if you just do that and you install the shock up here where it's normally mounted, you're really gonna be sitting weird. So I moved the shock down to the frame there, you can see, and it pretty much evened everything out. This thing sits pretty good, runs good, does really well in my opinion. So it's working. You guys let me know what you think. I'll link these in the description. And then on the rears, you can just kind of run whatever you want. I mean, I'm running just some hot racing long travels on the rear of this, I think. I usually do a little bit of a long travel on the rear because you're really limiting the front. You know, they don't have much travel. So you can see how much it just pulls that front back down. See that? But with a longer shock on the rear, you still get some decent flex. I know everybody's all about that flex game, but not me so much. Anyways, so you can still run your double barrels. You can run whatever, honestly. You can see it here, stock shocks in the rear of this, some long travel oil fields there, long travel just regular shocks there. Pretty much whatever will work. Just may have to play with it a little bit. You guys let me know what you think, what you're running. Tons of shock options out there now, so it's just, I mean, it's good. We can do what we want and build what we want. Used to, I had to put the oil filled Charismas on everything if I wanted a long shock, you know, back in the day. But now there's tons of other options. So we have the opportunity to build what we want. You know, everybody wants their truck to do something a little different. So it's nice to have options. And honestly, the shocks, I feel like somebody could really step in and still make a great shock. There's still not an amazing shock for these. Okay, let's test it out. We've still got the oil filled long travels on the front there. 58.7. I think this truck maxes out right around here. So you can see I swear I think I've gotten 59 before with this, but it's really just popping up there. That's about all it can do. So 58.8, 0.9, something like that. So let's swap these over in the front and see what we can do. All right, so we got the new shocks on. I did go ahead and run the silver spring in these just because with the hard body, you know, it's extra weight up high. I think I did the same thing maybe on the Bronco. I'm not sure. You just kind of got to play around with that. If you have a lot of weight up high, then you may want the thicker gauge spring. There's a black that comes in them, a silver, and a gold. And from what I could tell, the silver was a little softer than the gold. So that's what I've got in here. You can see it really keeps that front end pulled up. But if you get in a spot, you'll still have that travel. I wish they made some of these that were longer that we could play with a little more. But we're going to test this again now with these installed. So we're still at our 58.8. I didn't touch that. All the way to the top. I think you can see that. And it did it pretty easily. So reset and we'll try again. So let's see if we can get a little more out of it. It's already an improvement, so I'm happy with that. But if we could get like 61 out of it, that would be amazing. That's 61.5. Not quite. It's really starting, but we're kind of losing traction too. And then it loops out. Let's back it down. We're at 60.3 there. Basically 60.5, I would call it. That's the problem I'm having with the brush motors on this. You see how it stalled out on me? So we just climbed that to the top. So that's like 60.5. So it's pretty good improvement. We were probably getting around 58, honestly, maybe 58.5. And now we're at 60.5. So that's a couple degree increase by doing that in the front. And then you can keep your travel in the rear. So you can see the rear really drops. But that's gonna help this truck a lot, in my opinion. Anyways, that's just a quick little tip, shock mod that I do. There's a million different ways to do it. You can run long shocks in the front and limit them. You know, everybody always tells me, put limit straps on there. I probably have that comment more than anything. Put limit straps on it. I hate the look of limit straps. I don't like dealing with something up in there. Just, I don't want to do it, so I don't do it. If that's how you want to do it, it works, so have fun, but it's just not me. All right, so real quick, I'll just show you on this why I don't really do the limit straps. If you strap around the center to just hold this up, but you get your left to right travel, so I'm holding this up, but I still getting left to right. When you get on side hills, you still get that roll, that body roll. So you're still dumping at times. Yeah, you're sucked in a little bit there, but you get that flex, so you get that roll. It really helps you on your straight inclines. If you strap around all like here and strap both sides up, you're basically doing exactly what I'm doing with those shocks. You're just pulling the front end in and limiting it. But I just prefer these because it's a super clean, easy install. I don't have to deal with a strap wrapped around this, tangled up on that, and it works for me. It really keeps the front end down. When you side hill, like the front end is not lifting. See how that keeps that body pulled down, but it still gives you some travel. So really works well for me. I love these Trill long travel oil filled shocks in the rear here. I'm hoping they come back with those. They said they were working on a softer spring to put with them, so they're really the only ones I can keep oil in out of all the oil fields I've tried. The rest of them, I'd just soon throw them in the trash, but those work well. And then a lot of times I run the double barrels like on these because they collapse so far. So you can run your shock up here at an angle, and these just drop, and you can keep the truck level, but you still have a little bit of dampening there and all that travel. So this truck just seems to work for me, and that's what I'm going with. So I'll put a clip in here real quick where you can really see what I'm talking about with this front sticking and the rear flexing. So we'll put that little side hill shot in here. Let's check it out real quick. All right, maybe we'll just do a little side work right here. That's where these double barrels in the rear comes in handy. Look at that, your front stays pretty well planted. Rear drops down. Yeah, so that's just kind of the way I've been running my shocks. There's a lot of different ways. Like I said, I've played around with cutting shocks and putting them above like your collars here. I was trying to find small, tiny springs to go inside of some of these shocks to kind of do the same thing, but still have the outer spring. Overall, like I said, there's a million ways you can do it, but this works for me, and it's super simple. I mean, you don't have to do a bunch of crazy hacking and modding. One thing you do have to do normally with these shocks, because they are a bigger body, they'll want to hit the frame sometimes. So hopefully you can see that. They'll want to hit the chassis, and then they won't work smooth. They'll bind. So a lot of times you have to space them off of the chassis. So you use a longer screw, and you can see I have like a little tiny hex nut on the back side there. Hopefully you can see that. But to space them out, you know, that's especially if you're running them upside down. That's a big deal usually, but you have to get them off of that body or they'll hang up on the chassis and they won't work. Overall, this works good for me, especially like this rig, you know, you go up over something, it still allows that shock to drop down to where you can catch traction with the front, but for the most part, it keeps that front down all the time. So, in my opinion, really simple, easy way to have some decent shocks that keep you planted. So, you guys let me know what you think, how you run yours. Like I said, I know there's a billion different options. You can run long shocks, limit straps, whatever, but this works for me, and it's super simple. I have so many trucks that I just really don't have time to constantly be cutting and hacking and doing this and that. So this is a simple mod I can do on all of them really quick, and it works. Y'all let me know what you think. Peace.